Have you ever paused in the middle of a well-lit supermarket aisle, a place brimming with every conceivable delight, and felt an unexpected pang of emptiness? I'm not talking about the brief hunger that drives you to pick up a snack. I mean a deeper ache, as though your very capacity to want has been hollowed out. This is the paradox of our age. We live submerged in abundance and yet starve for something we cannot name. We own more devices than our grandparents could have dreamed of, and still we find ourselves reaching for them again and again, as if the next notification might finally soothe an unrest we hardly understand. In a world where choice has become a glittering jewel, thousands of streaming channels, an ocean of restaurant menus, shopping apps that promise to deliver anything from sneakers to soul satisfaction, why do so many of us wander through each day feeling hollow, restless, drained? How did we end up prisoners of our own prosperity? Aldous Huxley, writing decades before the first smartphone word to life, foresaw this soft enslavement with uncanny precision. He painted a future where human beings, lulled by pleasure and pampering, would exchange the raw intensity of genuine freedom for the soothing hum of convenience. At first glance, his dystopia seems outrageous. Why would anyone choose to become a slave when freedom is on offer? But Huxley understood something vital about the human mind. It craves ease, even at the cost of its own autonomy. The same waves of comfort that lull us into complacency also erode our capacity to question, to rebel, and ultimately to feel truly alive. And so, we find ourselves at an existential crossroads, basking in the warmth of our own making, yet shivering with a cold, unacknowledged emptiness. Pause a moment and consider the countless decisions you make every day. From the morning alarm tone you select to the latte you sip as you scroll through social media, each choice whispers a promise of self-expression. Yet behind that whisper lies a hidden chorus: marketing algorithms, subtle social cues, ancestral instincts fine-tuned by centuries of survival. We like to believe we are autonomous authors of our own lives, drawing each word from the ink of free will, but in reality, our pens are guided by invisible hands. These forces shape our desires long before we know we have them. They script our longings, sell us the ingredients for happiness, and then stand by with a thumbs up as we consume, swallow, and wonder why the prescription never quite works. What hidden forces sculpt your desires today? Is it the catchy jingle looping in your mind, the curated image flashing across your browser, or perhaps a deeper cultural narrative handed down through generations? We have been trained to see ourselves as ultimate consumers in a marketplace of dreams, but rarely do we step back to ask who's setting the prices, who's deciding what's worthy of pursuit. The irony is cruel. In a civilization built on the promise of individual liberty, we have become shepherds of our own confinement. It's as if we wake each morning in a plush cage, stretching our limbs against soft bars that feel like the very fabric of reality. Yet the story doesn't end in despair, far from it. The first glimmer of liberation arises the moment we recognize the mirage for what it is. Once you see how the soft chains of comfort have been fastened around your wrists, you glimpse the possibility of prying them open. You begin to awaken from the haze of programmed wants and empty satisfactions. A transformation awaits, the shift from passive consumer to conscious seeker, from a life conducted on autopilot to one steered by deliberate intent. But before that shift can occur, we must confront the central paradox of our existence, that in pursuing freedom through accumulation, we may have shackled ourselves to a system of invisible coercion. In the chapters that follow, we will trace the contours of this paradox, exploring how the very gadgets and conveniences that pledge to empower us ultimately conspire to hollow us out. We'll investigate the seductive machinery of consumer culture that plants longings in our minds before we even realize we've been ensnared. We'll peer into the silent pharmacies of pills and apps that promise relief but often deliver new forms of dependence. And we'll examine the digital factories of attention where every scroll and swipe is engineered to extract the essence of our being while offering only a fleeting sense of gratification. But here's the twist: awareness alone isn't enough. Recognizing the mirage is a crucial first step, but true emancipation demands that we learn to cultivate our own inner landscapes, to rediscover the sacred self that has been buried beneath layers of noise and distraction. We must become architects of our own rebellion, designing a life of intentional resistance crafted from small but unwavering acts of defiance against the forces that would keep us docile. It is in these acts, choosing presence over distraction, depth over speed, silence over noise, that we reclaim the raw color of existence and reignite the spark of genuine freedom. So I invite you to lean in, to open yourself to questions that may feel unsettling. What if the comfort you cherish most is also the prison you can't perceive? What if the next purchase you plan is only a band-aid over a wound you've been avoiding? What if the most radical act you could undertake today is simply to step off the conveyor belt of programmed desire and stand still in the face of your own mind? This isn't a call to reject modern life, nor to romanticize scarcity. Rather, it's an invitation to re-examine the terms of the contract you've signed with convenience, and to decide anew what freedom means for you in an age of limitless choice. You stand, if you choose, at the threshold of a journey that will lead you from the illusions of external gratification to the uncharted territory of inner sovereignty. We'll begin by probing the mirage of freedom itself, the way surface-level options conceal deep programming, and how each seemingly innocent decision carries the weight of a system designed to keep you passive. From there, we'll expose the invisible chains of consumerism that manufacture longing and turn it into a perpetual engine of acquisition. We'll step into the pharmacy of the soul, where pills and screens promise relief from pain yet often deepen the very wounds they claim to heal. We'll navigate the sprawling labyrinth of digital drugs, social media platforms, and algorithms that extract our attention in exchange for brief, empty hits of engagement. And then, with the compass of awareness in hand, we'll set our sights on rediscovering the sacred self, that quiet, radiant center within each of us that longs for meaning beyond the marketplace. Finally, we'll map out the path of personal rebellion, understanding that true revolt against modern slavery doesn't require heroic deeds or grand gestures. Instead, it unfolds through unwavering small acts, choosing silence over a notification, solitude over constant company, thoughtful alignment over reflexive convenience. Each seemingly minor decision becomes a stitch in the tapestry of a freer, more authentic life. Right now, you have a choice. You can continue gliding through your days unconsciously, lulled by the soft glow of screens and the seductive hum of automation. Or you can step back, gather your attention, and embark on a quest to reclaim the authorship of your own story. The invitation is on the table. All that remains is for you to take it up, to peer beyond the curtain of comfort, and to ask with courage, what hidden forces have been shaping my desires? And what might happen if I choose to become the conscious architect of my own freedom? The journey begins now. Querito espectador. Confira se você ainda está inscrito no canal. Às vezes, a inscrição pode ser cancelada automaticamente, então é sempre bom verificar. Aproveite e se torna membro do canal. Como membro, você terá benefícios incríveis, como assistir aos nossos conteúdos semanais. Além disso, você pode apoiar nosso trabalho sendo financiador do canal com value. Isso ajuda-nos permite investir em ferramentas melhores e elevar a qualidade de produção dos nossos conteúdos. Junta se nos nessa jornada e faca parte de nossa comunidade. Conta pra gente ai nos comentários de que cidade você está escutando esta história e que horrors são por ai agora. Part 1. The mirage of freedom. Imagine standing before a grand buffet of human choice, thousands of dishes glittering under warm lights, each more tempting than the last. You reach for your fork, eager to taste, yet unknown to you. Every plate has been arranged by an unseen host who decides which delights appear and which are hidden in the back. Imagine picking from thousands of options, yet every path was prelaid by someone else. That's the paradox we live, a dazzling display of freedom that conceals deeper programming. We think we're choosing. In truth, our choices are often choreographed long before our desires even form. Our lives are saturated with decision points: what to wear, which route to take, what playlist to cue, which brand of coffee to sip. We love to congratulate ourselves on our autonomy, yet each of these forks in the road often comes tethered to clever cues, advertising jingles, trending hashtags, peer recommendations. Our minds roam vast landscapes of possibility, but the maps we follow were drawn by forces whose motives rarely align with our truest interests. The more options we have, the more tightly we can be herded down invisible corridors. Authentic autonomy asks, am I the author of my choices, or merely a character playing out someone else's script? It's an unsettling question because our society teaches us to equate freedom with abundance. More channels, more apps, more product lines, surely more is better. Yet each new offering can quietly narrow our inner world, filling it with prescribed wants. We trade the blank canvas of genuine creativity for a coloring book of pre-drawn outlines. The paintbrush in our hand feels ours, but the shapes we fill in were outlined by distant architects of desire. Consider your morning ritual. You wake, eyeball the glowing screen by your bedside, and swipe to open the day. The app suggestions, the curated headlines, the personalized weather alert, each one seems tailored to you, yet they're designed to guide your mood, your topics of interest, even your emotions. You imagine you're grabbing independence by the wrist, but in reality, you're stepping onto a pathway meticulously laid out to keep you scrolling, clicking, consuming. Your autonomy becomes an illusion, a pleasing hallucination that keeps you compliant and distracted. This isn't a conspiracy of tinfoil hats, it's the logical outcome of systems built to optimize engagement and profit. Algorithms sift through your patterns, nudging you toward choices that maximize retention. Social validation becomes the North Star by which you steer your decisions, a like here, a share there, a comment that affirms your taste. Each little dopamine hit tightens the invisible leash. You think you've broken free by choosing which cat video to watch, but in truth, you're dancing on a stage of your own design, directed by unseen curators. When did you last choose a path simply because it resonated with your deeper yearnings, rather than because it appeared on a trending list or carried a 5-star rating? Maybe you can't recall. Instead, you follow the script, the recommended bestseller, the top-rated gadget, the most popular workout routine. You feel comfort in following the crowd. The shared script feels safe, validated, familiar. Yet underneath that comfort lies a subtle erosion of your unique signature, your personal inclination toward the unknown or the uncharted. The narrative twist emerges when we realize that the freedom we chase often reinforces the system that confines us. Each choice feels like an assertion of self, but taken together, they trace a path straight back into the heart of programmed conformity. We mistake the echo of our own preferences for a fresh departure, but those preferences were often seeded by external forces. We pat ourselves on the back for our taste, our style, our individuality, blissfully unaware that it's been finely tuned for maximum appeal and predictability. So how do we shift from unquestioning acceptance to critical awareness? The key lies in pausing at the threshold of every major decision and asking a simple question: why do I want this? Sit with that question long enough to hear the answer. It might whisper, because it's familiar, or admit, because everyone else is doing it. Rarely does it shout, because this aligns with my most profound values. That moment of honest reflection, awkward, vulnerable, unedited, is where we begin to reclaim authorship over our lives. Take the next step. Experiment with small acts of defiance. Skip the most talked about film and watch an obscure indie gem. Choose an offline path through the park instead of the GPS-suggested route. Order a meal without checking the star ratings first. These tiny rebellions might feel inconsequential, but each one loosens the grip of external scripts. You'll notice a growing sense of spaciousness around your thoughts, a budding confidence in your own inner compass. The more you practice, the more you'll see how deeply your default choices are wired to outside influences. Yet awareness is only the beginning. True transformation requires that we slowly strip away the layers of automated decision-making. It's like unlearning a language you never meant to speak, one word at a time. When you catch yourself clicking on a recommended for you playlist without reflection, pull back. When you feel compelled to update your wardrobe because of a viral trend, pause. These acts of interruption might send you spinning into discomfort because you're stepping off the conveyor belt of ease. But in that wobble, you'll sense a raw, unmediated sense of agency returning. This journey can feel lonely at first. After all, most people around you are humming along to the same background tune: Netflix suggestions, social media validation, app-driven routines. But you don't have to go it alone. Surround yourself with companions who question the status quo, who share stories of small rebellions, who reject the idea that your worth is stamped by mass approval. Together, you'll form a counterculture of authenticity, strengthening each other's resolve and lighting up the hidden pathways back to self-determination. The existential dilemma keeps tugging at you. Do you cling to the comforting illusion of choice, or do you embrace the unease of genuine freedom? It's a tension as old as philosophy itself, between the safety of conformity and the risk of individual expression. Yet here in the heart of modern abundance, the stakes feel more urgent. If we don't wake from the mirage, we risk drifting through life as passive spectators in our own stories, our capacity for wonder and invention slipping away like sand through an hourglass. Remember, every extraordinary transformation begins with a clear-eyed diagnosis of the problem. You've seen how surface-level choice masquerades as true autonomy, and how your preferences have been pre-programmed by external forces. Now ask yourself, where in your life do you follow a script you never wrote? Is it the way you consume news, the podcasts you listen to, the hobbies you pursue? Identifying those scripts is like shining a flashlight on the hidden threads that pull your puppet strings. Once exposed, they lose their power to control. What if you found yourself rewiring those threads, slowly, deliberately, until your decisions sprang from your own inner landscape? Imagine reclaiming the thrill of genuine surprise, the spark of original curiosity, the glow of decisions aligned with your deepest values. That's the transformation arc waiting on the other side of critical awareness. It isn't a dramatic overnight overhaul, but a series of small, intentional choices that accumulate into a life lived on your own terms. At the same time, remain mindful of the next layer of control that awaits discovery: engineered desire. For as soon as you liberate yourself from one set of influences, another will quietly slip into the cracks. Those plants of craving, where they sprout, how they grow, what fruits they bear, are the subject of Part 2. We'll examine how advertising and culture manufacture our yearnings before we even know we're hungry, and how those invisible chains can tighten around our hearts and minds. But before leaping forward, savor this moment of awakening. Notice the fresh space in your mind where blind impulses once ruled. Feel the subtle aliveness that flickers when you choose deliberately, when you reclaim a decision that truly reflects your essence. This is the threshold of real freedom, the gap between the external script and your authentic voice. Cultivate it, protect it, and let it guide your next steps. So take a breath, look around, and ask again, where in your life are you following a path someone else charted? The answer might surprise you. More importantly, it will empower you to pause before clicking buy now, before letting your day be dictated by notifications, before handing over your will in exchange for the promise of convenience. That pause is where your freedom resides. As we prepare to dive into the next chapter, exploring how our desires themselves have been engineered, you carry with you the seed of conscious choice. Tend to it with curiosity and courage. Keep your eyes peeled for moments when the world tries to script your story. And remember, true autonomy isn't the sum of endless options, but the clear expression of your own inner will. The mirage of freedom fades when you learn to see the desert beneath the glittering oasis. Part 2 awaits, where we'll shine a light on the invisible chains of consumerism and uncover how your wants were planted long before you ever felt the urge to reach. Part 2, the invisible chains of consumerism. Your wants weren't born in you, they were planted. Picture yourself gliding through a brightly lit mall, each storefront a beacon calling your name. Shiny mannequins display the promise of transformation. Wear this, they whisper, and you'll be confident. Drink that, and you'll belong. Every corner seems to pulse with seductive possibility, yet beneath the glittering veneer lies a subtle choreography. Marketers, brand strategists, cultural architects have sown seeds of craving long before you realized you were hungry. The longing that tugs at your gut, the conviction that you absolutely must own the latest gadget or trend, didn't spring spontaneously from your soul. It was cultivated, fertilized, and pruned to perfection. This is the invisible chain of consumerism, an unbroken cycle of longing, acquisition, brief satisfaction, and renewed hunger. We tend to confuse the veneer of variety with genuine freedom, hundreds of shoe styles, thousands of skincare products, endless streaming options. But each offering is designed to stoke desire, to convince you that fulfillment lies just one purchase away. Advertising is the wizard behind the curtain, wielding color psychology, storytelling arcs, and social proof to steer your emotions. You've been exposed to thousands of brand messages since childhood, jingles, logos, celebrity endorsements, each one imprinting a tiny instruction: this is what you need to be whole. Gradually, those imprints accumulate into a mosaic of manufactured wants that feel like pressing personal imperatives. You can sense that something is off, yet the momentum of craving makes you feel powerless. Philosophers and social critics have long observed this phenomenon. Jean Baudrillard warned of our descent into a procession of simulacra, where signs and symbols outpace reality, leaving us chasing ever fainter echoes of desire. Karl Marx dissected the notion of commodity fetishism, revealing how we imbue objects with magical qualities, as if a pair of shoes could whisper status or a watch could confer dignity. More recently, Eric Fromm described how modern society substitutes having for being, wrapping our identities around the possessions we accumulate. These authoritative concepts peel back the facade of consumer culture, showing us that our cravings are not purely organic but constructed, engineered by currents of profit and persuasion that flow beneath the surface of daily life. The emotional toll of this engineered longing can be immense. You might find yourself compulsively scrolling through online stores at midnight, chasing the hit of adding something new to your cart. Or maybe you experience a pang of anxiety when your favorite brand discontinues a shade of lipstick you used to wear. Each unbought item haunts you like a missed opportunity. Each newly purchased object stirs a fleeting thrill that vanishes faster than you can say sail. When the initial high dissolves, you are left with a dull ache, a sudden recognition that the thing you thought would complete you did nothing but deepen the void. And so the cycle restarts. Your next must-have is unveiled, promising salvation, yet delivering only a brief bandage over a wound that grows quietly wider. Behind this relentless churn lies a sophisticated psychological machinery. We crave more than objects. We yearn for affirmation, social status, a sense of identity. Advertisers exploit these vulnerabilities by crafting messages that dovetail with our deepest insecurities. Buy this bag and you'll belong to an elite circle. Own this car and people will notice you. They harness our fear of scarcity, limited editions, flash sales, and our longing for belonging, user-generated content, community hashtags. We become unwilling participants in a grand experiment. How far will we go to alleviate the ache of loneliness or insignificance with another purchase? And remarkably, we rarely stop to ask ourselves if those purchases serve our true needs or merely fill a hole in a script we didn't write. Social media amplifies these invisible chains. When your feed overflows with friends showing off their latest acquisitions, your heart registers a subtle tug, fear of missing out, a whispered suggestion that your life is somehow lacking if you don't keep pace. Algorithms elevate posts that trigger envy or aspiration, nudging you toward brands and lifestyles you never consciously sought. Suddenly, your values become pliable, shaped by a curated parade of aspirational images. Before you know it, you're chasing experiences and possessions that align with a projected ideal, not with your own authentic self. The very platforms promising connection deliver a potent dose of disconnection as you find yourself measuring your worth against digital daydreams. Consumerism masquerades as a balm for existential pain, offering the illusion of control. I will be happier if I can just obtain that. But every new acquisition demands maintenance, upkeep, updates, upgrades, insurance. The more you own, the more your attention fragments, divided among gadgets that demand charging, subscriptions that require renewal, closets that overflow with items rarely worn. What began as a path to liberation through choice becomes a labyrinth of obligations. Your possessions, meant to serve you, end up imprisoning you in a web of care, repair, replacement. A modern Sisyphus pushing the boulder of consumption uphill only to see it roll back down each time a new must-have emerges. How, then, do we break free from the invisible chains that tighten around our hearts? The first step is mindful discernment. Every time a desire flares, pause and ask, is this one arising from my soul, or was it sown by someone else? Notice the language of marketing in your mind: must-have, limited time, bestseller. Acknowledge the emotions they kindle: anticipation, envy, urgency, and watch how they shape your decision. Practicing this form of meta-awareness plants a seed of autonomy, a quiet rebellion against the default setting of programmed craving. Over time, you'll begin to distinguish genuine needs, fuel, shelter, meaningful connection, from market-created cravings that exist solely to keep you on the ever-spinning wheel. Practical exercises can accelerate this shift. Start a desire journal. Whenever you feel compelled to buy something, jot down what sparked the urge. Was it an ad? A friend's recommendation? Loneliness? After a week, review the entries. You'll likely discover patterns, purchases aimed at soothing boredom, seeking status, filling emotional voids. Next, experiment with a temporary moratorium. Pick one category: clothing, tech gadgets, beauty products, and commit to no buying for 30 days. Notice how your relationship to those items evolves. Do you truly miss them, or did the craving simply vanish when you refused to engage? These exercises provide real data on how deeply your wants have been engineered. Metaphorically, consumerism is like a meticulously designed garden, where every plant is selected, every weed suppressed, and every water flow controlled to yield maximum aesthetic appeal. But what if you want wildflowers that grow untamed? You can't cultivate them alongside carefully trimmed hedges and imported bonsai. They need a different soil, a different climate. Similarly, your inner landscape, your unique constellation of values, desires, and vulnerabilities, thrives under conditions of open curiosity, unhurried reflection, and selective pruning of market-induced impulses. Tend to your mental garden like a permaculture enthusiast. Invite diversity, observe which desires are native and robust, and gently uproot those that feel like exotic intruders. The tension between genuine need and manufactured craving is felt most acutely when we realize that every essential item came with an invisible price tag, an erosion of our attention, an expansion of our anxieties, a diminishing space for authentic self-discovery. The more you buy, the more your identity can become entangled with your things, until you struggle to know who you are beneath the layers of purchased accoutrements. Yet resisting the pull of consumerism feels risky, like standing alone in a storm of marketing winds. You worry about missing out, about appearing outdated, about forfeiting the comfort that a new purchase seems to promise. This is the crucible of transformation, learning to sit with the discomfort, to face your bare self without the armor of acquisitions. Transformation from compulsive acquisition to mindful discernment is neither instantaneous nor effortless. It requires a gradual retreat from the bombardment of marketing messages, digital detoxes, ad blockers, unsubscribed mailing lists. It involves curating your environment, reducing the number of shopping apps on your phone, unsubscribing from influencer channels, avoiding window shopping in the physical or virtual sense. Replace that stimulus with enriching alternatives, a walk in nature, a conversation with a friend, an afternoon spent on a creative project. As you create space between impulse and action, you reclaim fragments of your attention. Those fragments, once freed, can be reinvested in pursuits aligned with your true essence. At the heart of this shift lies a simple but profound question: which of your must-haves is a mirage? Pause long enough to feel the emptiness behind the desire. Notice how the belly-tightening anticipation dissolves into disappointment once the object is obtained. Ask yourself, what hole was I trying to fill? Can I meet that need in another way, through community, creativity, stillness? By interrogating each craving, you dismantle its power over you. Each time you choose presence over purchase, you reclaim a small piece of your sovereignty. These victories may feel minor at first, skipping a sale email, declining a trendy gadget, but they add up. They form the scaffolding of a new habit, mindful engagement rather than automatic consumption. Yet even as you cultivate this discernment, be aware that the plant of craving can sprout anew in unseen corners. As soon as you block one avenue of influence, another emerges: influencer marketing disguised as friendship, immersive shopping experiences designed to blur the line between browsing and buying, pop-up stores engineered for FOMO. Consumerism is adaptive. It evolves to find fresh cracks in your defenses. Recognizing this is not cause for despair, but for vigilance. The work of untangling yourself from invisible chains is ongoing, an iterative dance of watching, questioning, and choosing. Each cycle deepens your mastery over where your attention and energy flow. And so we arrive at a pivotal inflection point, the realization that consumer culture not only manufactures desires, but also offers chemical and digital comforts that anesthetize deeper pain. The purchase itself often feels like a soothing balm, a momentary relief from anxiety, loneliness, boredom. Yet that relief is fleeting. To understand the full architecture of modern escapism, we must peer beyond the marketplace into the pharmacies of our own making, the pills, the apps, the streaming platforms that promise to numb the ache we've tried to fill with possessions. This is where we must go next. In Part 3, we will explore the pharmacy of the soul, investigating how we've outsourced our sadness to quick fixes and instant gratifications, and how authentic healing waits on the other side of that shortcut. Part 3, the pharmacy of the soul. We've grown accustomed to treating every flicker of discomfort as a symptom in need of immediate correction. A twinge of anxiety becomes a pill popped before breakfast. A nagging sadness summoned at dusk is vanquished by a swipe through an app that promises guided calm. Sleepless nights are silenced by medication or a binging session of comfort TV. We've outsourced our sadness and our restlessness to pharmaceuticals, to screens, to any instant distraction that whispers, "Here, take this. Everything will be fine again." When did we begin to believe that our raw, complex feelings were nothing more than bugs to be squashed, rather than signals calling us toward deeper understanding? The modern pharmacy of the soul extends far beyond corner drugstores. It lives in every pocket, every palm, every bedside table. It comes in the form of SSRIs and benzodiazepines, offered with compassionate smiles and glossy brochures. It arrives as social media feeds, streaming services, snack aisles stocked with sugar-laced quick fixes. It's the push notification inviting us to order food at 2 in the morning, the curated meditation app promising 10 blissful minutes of relief, the endless scroll through images of people living lives we can never quite reach. All of these are chemical and digital comforts, meticulously engineered to anesthetize deeper pangs of loneliness, boredom, fear, existential dread. There's an irony here worth pausing over. These remedies, pitched as gateways to liberation from suffering, can become new chains around our wrists. We trade one form of dependence for another. Take the friend who swears they're totally fine after a daily prescription of anti-anxiety meds, yet never leaves the house without 3 backup pills in their pocket. Or the coworker who detoxed from sugar, only to find themselves downing caffeine tablets by the dozen to chase the next jolt of energy. Or the teenager who promises to quit doom scrolling, then wakes each morning to an alarm clock attached to a social feed that feels like an 4 drip of validation and distraction. These are not isolated anecdotes, they are reflections of a collective pattern. We chase the immediacy of relief and miss the invitation to genuine, lasting healing. The existential dilemma at the core of all this is stark. Do we choose temporary relief or authentic healing? When you swallow a pill to silence an ache deep in your chest, you might feel gratitude toward modern medicine, and rightly so. There are severe imbalances of brain chemistry that require chemical intervention. But how often do we arrive at pharmaceuticals or binge watching as first, rather than last, resorts? How frequently do we avoid the difficult work of feeling and integrating our pain because there's an easier fix? There's no shame in seeking relief, but the danger lurks when relief becomes a ritual faster than we can learn what our souls are trying to communicate. Philosophers from Socrates to Viktor Frankl have reminded us that suffering offers a doorway to meaning, if only we dare to walk through it instead of plastering over the cracks. Frankl wrote of the will to meaning as the central driving force in life, far more powerful than the will to pleasure or even the will to power. In our culture, however, The will to pleasure has triumphed. We numb ourselves at the first sign of discomfort, equating the absence of pain with the presence of happiness. Yet pain and joy are two sides of the same currency. Without one, the other loses its value. When we eradicate all momentary unease, we also dull the vibrancy of our aliveness. This is not a call to eschew modern medicine or to romanticize suffering. It's a call to recognize the difference between symptomatic relief and transformative healing. Imagine your emotional landscape as a garden. Occasional weeding or pruning, talk therapy, a night of good sleep, a supportive conversation, a dose of antibiotics for a throat infection, serves to keep the environment healthy. But if you pour herbicide on every tender shoot of discomfort, you risk sterilizing the soil. Nothing grows, everything stagnates. Similarly, when we apply a blanket of chemical or digital numbing agents over every spike of pain, we lose touch with the very depths that give rise to creativity, connection, and spiritual insight. Consider the story of a young professional, let's call her Maya, who struggled with chronic exhaustion and low mood. She was handed a prescription for stimulants to boost her energy and a separate prescription for sleep aids to push her back into slumber at night. On the surface, she ticked the boxes. She was awake, productive, and able to rest briefly. Yet inside, she felt more disconnected from herself than ever. Her highs were jittery and her lows were flat. She'd lost the sense of rhythm between her mind, body, and heart. Those prescriptions were crutches, not wings. One day, a trusted mentor asked Maya a simple question: what would your life look like if you learned to rest when you're tired, rather than medicating your tiredness? What could you discover if you allowed yourself to feel the ache of exhaustion without rushing to fill it? Maya balked at first. What if the fatigue stuck around? What if her performance suffered? But with gentle encouragement, she began a series of experiments. She turned off her phone 3 hours before bed. She blocked out Sunday afternoons for complete stillness. She practiced lying on the grass and watching clouds drift. The first few sessions were agonizing. Her mind raced, her body pounded with restlessness. But over weeks, she began to notice shifts. Her energy no longer felt manufactured. Her creativity flickered back to life. Her relationships deepened as she became more present. This transformation wasn't instantaneous, nor was it smooth. She faced resistance from friends who wondered why she refused invitations or why her productivity dipped in the early weeks. The pharmacy of quick fixes beckoned at every corner. A late-night craving to binge a TV series could have knocked her off course completely. But each time she resisted the pull of the easy remedy, she reclaimed a fragment of herself. She cultivated inner resilience, the capacity to sit with discomfort long enough for it to teach her something. And in that teaching, she found a richer aliveness than any pill could offer. What pain, then, are you masking instead of confronting? There's no need to judge your coping mechanisms. Many of us learned them in response to environments that demanded constant performance and unflagging productivity. Yet beneath each coping mechanism lies a message. That tension in your chest may point to unspoken loneliness, an invitation to reach out to someone. That mid-afternoon sugar crash could reveal an undernourished body in need of genuine rest or proper food. That urge to check your phone the moment you feel bored might highlight a hunger for novelty, for beauty, for real conversation. When you stop medicating every feeling, you open a channel to your own deeper wisdom. Practical steps toward this kind of authentic healing begin with radical curiosity about your internal world. When the impulse to numb hits, pause. Notice the physical sensations: tightness in the chest, a fluttering stomach, a dull ache. Name them. This is anxiety. This is loneliness. This is exhaustion. Give those sensations your full attention for at least a minute before reaching for any substance or screen. You may discover that the sensation peaks and subsides, like a wave cresting and receding. In that space, you begin to learn the language of your own body-mind system. Journaling can also serve as a bridge from numbing to knowing. Write down what's going on before you medicate. Ask yourself, what happened 30 minutes ago? Who was I with? What was I thinking about? What expectation or fear surfaced? Charting these patterns brings you face to face with the triggers that compel you toward quick fixes. Over time, you might notice that certain emotional landmines, work stress, relationship conflicts, feelings of unworthiness, consistently send you running toward pills or digital distractions. Awareness of these triggers is the first step toward freedom from them. Another powerful practice is to cultivate small, manageable rituals that replace the numbing routine. If you habitually scroll through your phone at night, try instead to light a candle and read a physical book for 15 minutes. If you reach for sugary snacks when the afternoon slump hits, keep a bowl of fresh fruit or a handful of nuts at hand. If your go-to remedy for a bad day is a marathon of sitcom reruns, schedule a weekly block of time for an authentic creative pursuit, drawing, dancing, gardening, whatever sparks a glimmer of genuine interest. These rituals may feel insignificant compared to the seductive ease of the old habits, but each one reorients you toward presence and choice. Of course, there will be times when you need professional support. Therapy, coaching, group support, these are all valid avenues for authentic healing. The aim is not to reject all external help, but to engage with it consciously, as a complement to your own inner work rather than a substitution for it. Ask yourself, is this a tool to help me learn and grow, or am I using it to bypass the very growth I seek? Using antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications responsibly, under a doctor's guidance, can be life-saving. But pairing them with a commitment to cultivating self-awareness, to processing emotions rather than suppressing them, multiplies their power and reduces the risk of lifelong dependency. As you walk this path from self-medication to inner resilience, be gentle with yourself. The cultural currents pushing us toward numbing are powerful: pharmaceutical companies with vast marketing budgets, app developers optimizing for engagement above all else, social norms that valorize constant productivity and cheerlead correctives as badges of success. Swimming against that tide feels exhausting at times. You may stumble, you may backslide, and you may temporarily lose faith in the process. That's okay. Remember that transformation is messy. It's a spiral, not a straight line. Each time you return from a detour, you bring fresh insights into what truly soothes and what merely sedates. Here's a metaphor to hold on to. Imagine your emotional life as a vast ocean. The waves of feeling with joy, sorrow, anger, longing, are not problems to eliminate but currents to navigate. Self-medication and instant distraction are like strapping a flotation device that keeps you above water but never allows you to dive deeper, to swim with the currents, to touch the mysterious depths where the most profound treasures lie. Cultivating inner resilience is learning to swim skillfully, understanding how to ride the waves without capsizing when a storm hits, how to float when you need rest, and how to dive below the surface when you're ready to explore uncharted waters. So ask yourself again, what pain are you masking instead of confronting? What part of your inner ocean are you avoiding? And what might you discover if you learn to swim rather than just float? The invitation is to experiment with sitting in discomfort, with feeling your feelings fully before grabbing for the nearest escape hatch. Notice how this choice shifts the quality of your attention, not away from pain, but toward presence. As you grow more comfortable with this unmediated approach, you'll notice subtle transformations in your daily life. You'll begin to recognize that true relief often arrives not as a sudden disappearance of discomfort, but as a spaciousness around it, a sense of room to contain and learn from the feeling. You'll find that some aches fade on their own when witnessed kindly, while others invite you into deeper inquiry, a conversation with a friend, a burst of creative expression, a decision you've been afraid to make. Each of these responses strengthens your capacity to respond rather than react, to heal rather than hide. And yet this journey does not end here. Even as we break free from chemically induced slumbers, we remain vulnerable to a new breed of digital anesthetics, platforms, and algorithms designed to exploit the same neural pathways as pills, but at the scale of billions of microinteractions. The next chapter will guide us into that realm, the attention factories of social media, the infinite scrolls and algorithmic feeds that deliver hit after hit of superficial engagement. We'll examine how every scroll is engineered to bypass your conscious mind, to replace real reflection with passing distraction. We'll confront the compelling paradox that the very devices meant to connect us can hollow us out more effectively than any medication. In Part 4, we'll step into the world of digital drugs, exploring how your smartphone has become the most potent pharmacy of the soul, a place where comfort, stimulation, and escape collide in an endless cycle. We'll learn how to recognize when our attention has been hijacked and how to reclaim it, stitch by stitch, until we hold our focus like a lantern in the dark. So, pause now and take note. What relief are you chasing on your screen? Where does your thumb instinctively land when you feel uneasy? Keep those questions in mind as you prepare to explore the next frontier of modern numbing and discover the path from passive consumption to deliberate, conscious living. Part 4, Digital Drugs, the attention factory. Every scroll is a hit until you're empty again. You wake in the middle of the night, heart drumming with a need you can't quite name, and instinctively reach for your phone. Within seconds you're plunged into a whirlpool of images, friendly faces, breaking news, bite-sized dopamine nuggets designed to feel like connection. Each swipe delivers a micro-thrill, a brief aha, a laugh, a gasp, but it never lasts. Your thumb moves on, hunting for the next fix, and soon you're lost in an infinite feed, the glow of the screen pulsing like a heartbeat you can't quite regulate. This is the attention factory in action, social platforms and apps engineered to hijack your focus and monetize your wandering mind. They don't just serve content, they sculpt your cravings, train your habits, and leave you craving more even as you drift further from yourself. Modern devices have become the most potent pharmacopoeia of our time, offering bottomless supplies of stimulation. Push notifications are the syringe needles in this scenario, each ping a promise of something urgent, important, or entertaining. Designed by teams of behavioral scientists, these signals tap into the primitive fight-or-flight and reward circuits of your brain. They exploit fear of missing out, the itch for novelty, the hunger for social validation. Unlike pills you swallow and forget, the digital drugs of social media come with a social ledger, likes, shares, comments, retweets. They offer the illusion that you're participating in a grand conversation, when in fact you're often just drifting on currents that steer you toward ads, toward snacks you don't need, toward status contests you never wanted to join. It starts innocently enough. A friend tags you in a meme, you laugh, you scroll on. A few minutes later you notice an hour has slipped away. The oak-shaped tree of your attention, once strong and rooted, now bends under a constant wind of distraction. You may believe you're in control, that this is just harmless downtime. But downtime is a gateway drug. It primes you for more stimulation, more urgency, more fractured focus. Before long, even the simplest tasks, reading a book, planning a meal, having a real conversation, feel empty if not accompanied by a digital breadcrumb trail. You mistake buzz for meaning, screen time for presence, and an endless news loop for genuine engagement with the world. The twisted beauty of algorithmic design is its use of variable reward schedules, a concept borrowed from early psychologists who studied what kept lab animals pressing levers. When the reward is unpredictable, the behavior becomes almost obsessive. You might get a heartwarming story, a scandalous reveal, or a breaking news alert at any moment, so your finger hovers in readiness, seeking that next rush of surprise. But most of what you encounter is filler, ads, clickbait, low-grade stimulation, designed to keep you hooked until another hit arrives. Each delay, each moment of suspense, intensifies the craving. You become conditioned, Pavlov's dog of the digital age, salivating for the next ding, the next scroll, the next illusion of progress. Here lies the existential dilemma. We yearn for real connection, for presence, for moments of unmediated wonder, yet we settle for the simulacrum offered by glowing rectangles. We tell ourselves we're staying informed, that we're forging social bonds, that we're simply entertaining ourselves. But are we? Or are we being nudged toward passive roles, viewers, consumers, data points, while algorithms shape our beliefs, our moods, even our values? Platforms thrive on engagement metrics. The longer you stay, the more ads you view, the more revenue they generate. You become not a citizen but a resource, a field of attention being harvested. Your most precious asset, the gift of unfragmented awareness, is squeezed and packaged for profit. Suddenly you realize that the promises of digital connection often deepen your isolation. You scroll through a feed of smiling faces and feel lonelier. You read comments from strangers and feel more anxious. You watch curated highlight reels of other people's lives and feel your own dull and inadequate. Each comparison drains a bit more color from your day. You may even find yourself checking your phone mid-conversation, mid-nature walk, mid-moment of leisure, because the apps are whispering that something is more interesting on the other side of the screen. Presence evaporates. Life becomes something you consume rather than something you live. But here's the narrative twist. These platforms were never built to serve your well-being. Their architects call themselves engagement engineers, and their mission is to keep you scrolling, clicking, reacting, so they can sell your attention to the highest bidder. The design is as sophisticated as any pharmaceutical formula, pop-up notifications that exploit your social instincts, stories that vanish unless you watch them on cue, autoplay features that obliterate your decision points. Each element is tuned to bypass your rational mind and speak directly to your limbic system. You don't notice the hand guiding you, because it moves with such elegance that you feel you're dancing of your own accord. The path from passive consumption to deliberate engagement begins with a simple yet radical act, noticing the pull. The next time your phone buzzes, pause. Instead of reflexively picking it up, let that space of silence expand. Notice the sensation in your body, tingling fingers, a quickened heartbeat, a faint anxiety pressing in your chest. Recognize that this is not a neutral invitation but a calculated nudge. You are not powerless, you have the ability to choose. You can turn off non-essential notifications, unsent newsletters, app badges counting down your sense of guilt. You can rearrange your home screen so that only the tools you really need remain, banishing the time-sucking distractions to a hidden folder. Deliberate engagement means reclaiming your attention like a lost territory. It's the difference between mindless binge scrolling and purpose-driven browsing. Before you open an app, ask yourself, what am I hoping to find here? What need am I meeting? If your answer is something fun, something new, or something to pass the time, pause again. Fun, novelty, and downtime are valuable, but they don't need to be fetched by an algorithm 24/7. You might choose to read a chapter of a book instead, or to step outside and let your mind wander naturally without an engineered proposition. You might call a friend, cook a meal, sketch a scene. Each act of substitution replenishes your well of attention, rather than draining it further. Practical strategies can accelerate this shift. Designate recurring no-screen blocks: breakfast, family dinner, the half hour before bed. Create a focus playlist that deliberately excludes podcasts, YouTube channels, and radio stations that entice you into hours of passive listening. Install apps that track your screen time and send gentle reports on how you're actually using your phone. But treat these tools as aids, not ends in themselves. The goal is not to punish yourself for using technology, but to use it so selectively that each engagement feels intentional and nourishing. Over time, you'll uncover the rhythm of your own attention, when you're most creative, when you need quiet, when you hunger for novelty, and when you thrive on social exchange. Consider the metaphor of a lighthouse keeper who tends a single, powerful light rather than chasing every passing ship. Your focus is that light. When it shines steadily, you illuminate your own path, not the fleeting ships of cat videos or viral challenges. Each time you choose silence over a notification, each time you resist the siren call of the next clickbait headline, you tend that light. You strengthen your internal lighthouse, making it possible to navigate the tumult of modern life with clarity and purpose. Slowly but surely, you reclaim time that once leaked away in pixelated drips, and you redirect it toward what truly matters. Yet the journey doesn't end with awareness and self-restriction. The deeper transformation arises when you learn to use digital tools in service of your values rather than the other way around. Instead of consuming content, become a creator, or at least a curator, of your own digital environment. Follow accounts that inspire genuine curiosity, nature photography that makes your heart expand, thoughtful essays that invite you to question, musicians whose new tracks spark a sense of joy. Unfollow the ones that drain you, that stoke your anxiety, that pressure you to compare. Build a digital diet that feeds your soul, not starves it. Remember that every app, every subscription, every notification setting is a choice, an opportunity to align your external tools with your internal compass. And now, take a moment to reflect. When was the last time you chose silence over a notification? When did you last let your mind drift like a cloud across a blue sky, unpursued by alerts or alarms? In those rare interludes of unstructured attention lies the seed of authentic creativity, the spark of real insight, the feeling of true presence. These moments are increasingly scarce, yet infinitely valuable. They remind you that life is not a series of feeds to be scrolled through, but a singular journey to be lived with unbroken attention. As you solidify this shift, from consenting participant in the attention economy to deliberate stewards of your own focus, you prepare for the next frontier of liberation, rediscovering the sacred self. For once you have reclaimed the space of your own attention, you'll find that a deeper world awaits, an inner landscape of purpose, wonder, and intrinsic values that no algorithm can ever replicate or monetize. In Part 5, we'll explore how to reconnect with that quietly radiant center, how to choose fewer, more aligned commitments, and how to cultivate the wholehearted presence that transforms mere existence into a life of meaning. The attention factory may roar in the background, but armed with deliberate engagement, you can turn away from its pull and step into the vast expanse of your own undivided self. You've spent chapters peeling back the layers of external coercion, recognizing the scripts you never wrote, the cravings someone else planted, the pharmaceuticals and apps that silenced your discomfort. Now, imagine turning those insights inward, as if lifting a veil to reveal a quietly radiant center you've always carried. Your deepest self has been waiting behind layers of noise, behind the habit of reflexive distraction, behind the avalanche of shoulds and must-haves that crowd your mind. It's not hidden because it's elusive, it's hidden because you've trained yourself to look everywhere except within. But once you pause long enough, you sense its gentle pulse, a faint hum of purpose and wonder that seeks expression. In the hush that follows intentional silence, you begin to sense your intrinsic values shimmering beneath the surface. Perhaps you notice how your breath deepens when you think of a childhood dream, a painting half finished, a long-ago melody you forgot you once hummed. You recall the flicker of joy when you lost yourself in a story or a stretch of open road. These are not mere nostalgic yearnings, but breadcrumbs leading back to the terrain of your true self. Social validation may have you chasing likes, shares, or professional accolades, but inner validation is the quiet nod that follows an action aligned with your core. It tastes of integrity and resonates in your bones, rather than flashing across a screen. The paradox is that real freedom often emerges not from more options, but from the courage to choose fewer, more aligned paths. Recall how overwhelming it felt when every app, every subscription, every potential commitment clamored for your attention. Now picture your calendar and your mind uncluttered, space to breathe, space to wonder, space to commit wholeheartedly to what truly matters. In this slimmed-down landscape, each choice gains weight and clarity. Saying no becomes an act of self-respect rather than deprivation. Fewer choices means fewer internal negotiations, fewer compromises, and a deeper trust in your own compass. What are the values that light you up? Maybe it's curiosity, justice, creativity, service, or the simple delight of presence. Take a moment to list 3 or 5 pillars that resonate so strongly you'd feel adrift without them. These aren't ambitions like be rich or be famous, but guiding hearts that shape your days, cultivate kindness, pursue learning, cherish connection. When you ground your decisions in these pillars, every yes carries meaning and every no becomes an act of protection. It's like choosing sturdy landmarks in a shifting desert so you never lose your way. Embodiment is key. The sacred self isn't aloft above the fray. It lives in your hands, your feet, your heartbeat. Notice how your posture shifts when you lean into creative play rather than slump over a screen. Feel the solidity under your feet when you step outside barefoot, reconnecting to the earth. Notice the surge in your chest when you speak your truth in a conversation that matters. Presence isn't a lofty concept, it's a tangible vibration you carry when mind, body, and spirit align. It's the difference between reading about wonder and actually gazing at a sunrise until it spills golden light into your soul. Curiosity becomes your flashlight in this inner terrain. Approach each day as a scientist exploring uncharted territory. What activity stills your mind and ignites your soul? What question, however small, calls for your full attention? A notebook and pen can become sacred tools. Jot down what surprises you, what stirs gratitude, what aches with longing. These notes map the contours of your sacred self over time. You learn which experiences anchor you and which drain you. You start to sense patterns, that your heart sings with music more than with social scrolls, or that the aroma of fresh soil revitalizes you more than the latest gadget. Yet this rekindling of your inner light can feel precarious. You may instinctively flick on a notification, or feel the old pull toward acquiescing in a conversation that doesn't align with your values. You might worry about neglecting others by tending to your own spark. But remember that when your lamp burns brightly, it isn't selfish, it guides you and others forward. Honoring your own depth creates ripples of authenticity in your relationships. You won't need to convince people of your worth. They'll feel it radiating in the way you show up, steady, clear, and compassionate. Consider the example of Leo, a mid-level manager who once measured success by quarterly targets and LinkedIn endorsements. He felt a persistent hollowness despite every promotion. One weekend, he joined a pottery workshop on a whim and discovered a meditation in shaping clay. The experience didn't come with likes or shares, but it awakened something dormant: patience, focus, awe at the malleability of earth. He began dedicating 40 minutes each morning to that creative practice before the world woke up. His sense of pressure slid into perspective, and decisions at work, once reactive, became purposeful. He realized that the slow art of pottery offered more insight into his own transformation than any boardroom did. The bravest act in rediscovering your sacred self may be embracing solitude. In a culture that fetishizes busyness and connectivity, pulling back can look radical. Yet solitude isn't loneliness, it's a return to your own company, an invitation to converse with your deepest self without interruption. Turning off your phone for an hour, walking a silent path, or sitting with just a cup of tea allows you to listen. In the stillness, you hear the voice that says, "This resonates," and the one that cautions, "This drains." You begin curating not only your external environment but your internal one, treating thoughts and feelings as guests you welcome or politely bid farewell. As your awareness grows, you'll notice invitations to return to fragmented attention, that tap-tap of your keyboard craving mindless tabs, the urgent group chat lighting up your screen, the implicit demand to always be reachable. Each time you choose to uphold your inner spatial boundaries, you reclaim another shard of presence. The transformation arc moves from dispersed focus and attention scattered in 1,000 directions to wholehearted presence in the task, the conversation, the breath. You start to sense how much richer life feels when you're fully there rather than merely partially present. This process also invites you to simplify your commitments. Ask yourself, what few projects or relationships am I willing to invest in with my full energy? Instead of juggling 10 obligations half-heartedly, choose 2 or 3 that align with your values and bring you alive. You might pick mentorship over mindless networking, community gardening over passive real estate scrolling, authentic dialogue over superficial small talk. Each commitment you prune makes room for deeper growth in the ones that remain. It's the art of subtraction. Remove the non-essential, and what's left shines with clarity. The ritualization of presence can anchor you daily. Perhaps it's a short morning ritual of 3 deep breaths and asking, what aligns with my values today? Or an evening ceremony of listing 3 moments of genuine connection. Maybe you light a candle when you start creative work, signifying the sacredness of that time. Whatever form it takes, rituals signal to your nervous system that you're stepping into a different mode, one of intentionality rather than autopilot. These practices cement the habit of wholehearted presence until it becomes second nature. It's natural to question if this inner work matters in a world that demands constant output. Yet consider this, when you operate from your sacred core, your impact radiates further than any frantic effort could. A conversation held with full presence can inspire more than 100 shallow tweets. A decision rooted in integrity can influence a team more profoundly than a directive fueled by ego. By cultivating your inner landscape, you plant seeds that blossom not only in your life but in the lives of those around you. So, pause now and feel into your center. What activity, however small, stills your mind and ignites your soul? Does a walk in the woods clear the fog? Does sketching for 10 minutes spiral you into a state of flow? Does a simple greeting to a neighbor spark a sense of community that nourishes you? Identify that spark, honor it, and weave it into your daily tapestry. In doing so, you practice inner validation and chart a course toward lifelong freedom. As this chapter of rediscovery draws to a close, you stand on the cusp of transformation, from scattered, marketplace-driven impulses to a life anchored in your sacred self. The horizon ahead invites you to translate these awakenings into acts of intentional rebellion, small, unwavering gestures that resist the soft enslavement of modern life. What might one tiny habit, chosen in full presence, look like when carried through each day, each week, each month? In the next step, you'll learn to craft your personal rebellion, using the clarity and strength you've cultivated here to defy the forces that would keep you docile. Part 6 awaits, where every deliberate choice becomes a stitch in the tapestry of your own liberation. Part 6. Crafting your personal rebellion. Rebellion doesn't require grand gestures, only unwavering small acts. It's the quiet refusal to let convenience write your story, the gentle subversion of habits that shuttle you along the conveyor belt of passive existence. Imagine, for a moment, a single drop of rain persistently striking a smooth stone. Over time, that drop carves a miniature crater, an imperceptibly small change at first, but one that accumulates, deepening the impression with every fall. Your tiny acts of defiance function much the same way. They may seem inconsequential against the vast machinery of modern life, the algorithms, the marketing wiles, the chemical and digital sedatives, but as you repeat them, day after day, they reshape the contours of your inner landscape, carving out space for authenticity, presence, and real freedom. Here lies our central dilemma: comfort in conformity versus discomfort in growth. It is far easier to surrender to the lulling hum of autopilot, to slip into the well-worn grooves of habit that require no conscious effort. Abandoning those grooves, however, is akin to stepping onto a narrow ridge for the first time, terrifying, exhilarating, uncertain. The path of rebellion begins at that narrow edge. It asks you to trade the cozy predictability of routine for the jagged thrill of choice. It invites you to become the architect of your own reality, reshaping your daily rituals in accordance with what truly matters to you, rather than what the world demands. Let's consider the simple act of waking in the morning. For many, the default sequence involves reaching for the smartphone on the bedside table, scanning notifications, and surrendering the first precious moments of consciousness to external demands. But imagine a different ritual. The moment your eyes flicker open, you sit up, stretch your back, and take 3 deliberate breaths, filling your lungs with intention before you even touch your phone. In place of the digital barrage, you might place a small object on your nightstand, perhaps a smooth stone, a pressed flower, or a handwritten note to yourself. As you cradle that object, you reconnect with your own presence before the world presses its agenda upon you. That 5-second pause is a tiny rebellion, a first stitch in the tapestry of your day that declares, I own these moments. I choose what shapes my mind. From that initial pause, you carry forward other small revolutions. If your default at lunch is to wolf down food while scrolling through headlines, decide instead to bring only a single distraction-free element. Perhaps an old-fashioned paper journal where you jot down 3 things you're grateful for, or a piece of instrumental music that you play softly, letting the melodies dance around your ideas. If your afternoons used to bleed into social media scrolling, replace that impulse with a 2-minute standing stretch or a brief walk outdoors to feel the earth beneath your feet. These micro-interventions feel trivial in isolation, but together they form a network of choice points, tiny forks in the road where you consciously step off the prescribed track and reaffirm your sovereignty. Here's the narrative twist. As you accumulate these small acts, something remarkable happens. You start to notice the scripts you once followed with automatic ease grow brittle and outdated. The social media platform you once opened reflexively begins to feel oppressive. Its colors start to grate against the spaciousness you've cultivated. That late-night snack you used to crave when tired no longer feels inevitable once you've experienced the refreshing clarity of short, deliberate movement breaks. Your resistance, honed in these minor skirmishes, equips you for the larger battles against invisible coercion. Every time you choose a short walk over an endless scroll, you reinforce the muscle of agency, proving to yourself that the shadow of compulsion can be cast aside, one small act at a time. Crafting your personal rebellion also means choosing what to subtract from your life. Rebellion is as much about saying no as it is about saying yes. It's the conscious decision to remove low-value commitments so that high-value engagements can flourish. If you find your calendar littered with meetings that sap your creative energy, see which ones you can decline or delegate. If your mental bandwidth is clogged by incessant email threads or chat notifications, create blocks of deep work time and communicate clearly to others that you will respond only during designated hours. Notice how the simple act of pruning obligations yields an unexpected gift, an expanded horizon of possibility. With fewer competing demands, you can direct your full attention to what aligns with your core values, be it a creative project, nurturing a relationship, or simply cultivating unstructured time for reflection. The transformation arc shifts from powerless observer to empowered architect. In the past, you may have watched your life unfold as if from a distance, buffeted by external forces beyond your control. Now, with each small rebellion, you reclaim a piece of that control. You begin to realize that the power to shape your days lies less in grand resolutions and more in consistent, deliberate micro-choices. The cumulative impact of these choices grows exponentially. At first, you perceive only a faint glimmer of difference, perhaps an extra 10 minutes of calm in the morning, a deeper satisfaction at the end of a short break. But weeks and months later, you'll look back and find a transformed landscape. You'll recognize that those tiny acts of resistance rewove the fabric of your habits, establishing a new default, one of conscious engagement rather than blind compliance. Of course, there will be setbacks. You will lapse into old routines, surrendering the day's first minutes to a social media scroll or letting your lunch break dissolve into notifications. Accept these moments without harsh self-judgment. They are inevitable when forging a new path. What matters is your response. Do you berate yourself and give up, or do you notice the lapse, take a breath, and choose again? True rebellion embraces imperfection. It understands that the path to freedom is winding, marked by both advances and retreats. Each time you notice yourself slipping, you have another opportunity to assert your agency. Each moment of return, no matter how small, strengthens your resilience and reaffirms your commitment to living on your own terms. Rebellion also requires community. Though it begins with individual choices, small acts gain power when shared. Talk to friends or family about the tiny rituals you're experimenting with. Share the experience of watching your phone's grip loosen or the quiet joy of carving out a morning pause. Invite others to join you in a weekly no-screen brunch or a brief midday walk. In doing so, you create a counterculture of presence within your social circles, a collective that honors intentional practices over reflexive consumption. You'll find that solidarity transforms your micro-rebellions into a shared movement, making it easier to sustain them amid the friction of daily life. As you refine your personal rebellion, document your journey. Keep a simple log, either digital with minimal interruptions or in a small notebook, where you note each act of resistance and its effect on your mood, energy, or focus. Over time, patterns will emerge. You might discover that refusal of screen time before bed consistently leads to deeper sleep and more vibrant mornings. or that brief moments of gratitude practice alleviate midday anxiety. These data points become evidence of your progress, reinforcing your motivation to continue. They also reveal which tiny habits yield the greatest returns, allowing you to double down on the practices that infuse your life with greater freedom and joy. But perhaps the most potent aspect of this rebellion lies in its ripple effect on your identity. As you accumulate small wins, your self-image shifts. You cease to see yourself as someone who can't help but scroll through feeds or rush through meals. You begin to identify as a person who pauses, notices, chooses. This fresh identity acts as a lodestar, guiding future decisions with greater ease. Instead of battling each desire as if it were an external enemy, you internalize a new standard: I am the kind of person who cherishes intentional moments. Once that belief takes root, actions align more effortlessly with your aspirations. The rebellion transitions from a series of deliberate efforts to a natural expression of who you've become. Yet even as you settle into these empowering rhythms, remember that rebellion is not a static endpoint but an ongoing practice. The forces of modern enslavement adapt quickly, new apps emerge, marketing strategies evolve, societal norms shift. Your task is to remain vigilant, scanning each corner of your life for creeping default scripts. Celebrate the clarity you've gained, but stay curious. Where else might you be ceding your agency without noticing? Could it be your morning news ritual, your weekend entertainment choices, or the way you structure your social media feeds? Each layer peeled back opens the door to deeper exploration. In this sense, personal rebellion is like tending a garden. It requires regular weeding, fresh plantings, and an ever-watchful eye for unwelcome intruders. As you prepare to step into this evolving practice, ask yourself a vital question: which tiny habit can you flip today to reclaim your freedom? It might be as simple as silencing your phone's push notifications for an hour, or setting a timer to stand and stretch every 30 minutes. It could mean placing a small journal by your bed to record morning reflections instead of diving into email, or choosing a single day each week to disconnect digitally and reconnect with the natural world. No matter the choice, commit to it fully, however modest it may seem. Remember that the strength of your rebellion grows not in the grandeur of the act, but in the persistence of its repetition. Now, carry that question with you into the coming hours. Notice where your routines drift into autopilot. Spot the moments where you reach for distraction rather than presence. And then, with deliberate intention, interrupt the pattern with a tiny act of defiance. Feel the spark that ignites when you reclaim a sliver of control over your time and attention. Let that spark warm you, guiding you toward further exploration of your newfound agency. This is your moment to step off the well-worn path and chart a new course. The soil of your life now bears the imprint of your small rebellions, each one a seed of autonomy waiting to blossom. Tend to them daily, and you will witness the gradual yet profound transformation of your existence. The mosaic of your habits will shift, revealing a portrait of freedom painted in the everyday choices you make. As you continue this practice, stay tuned to the deeper reflections and challenges ahead. Soon, we will draw all these threads together in a final provocation, an invitation to identify the most insidious chain still gripping your life and to break one link today. But for now, celebrate the courage it took to begin, the power embedded in your micro-revolutions, and the boundless potential that awaits when you insist on authoring your own story. Which tiny habit will you flip right now, and how will that first ripple of resistance transform the landscape of your days? We began this journey in a well-lit supermarket aisle of our own making, dazzled by choices yet starving for something we could not name. We trace the steps of Aldous Huxley's prophetic warning that in an age of unparalleled abundance, the soft hum of convenience lulls us into complacency, hollowing out our capacity to question or feel truly alive. We peeled back the layers of modern enslavement one by one, first exposing the mirage of freedom in which our daily decisions, however abundant, were prescripted by unseen architects of desire. We confronted the invisible chains of consumerism that plant our wants before we know we're hungry and watch us chase endless mirages of fulfillment. We stepped into the pharmacies of our own making, where pills and apps promise relief yet too often trade genuine healing for numbing sedation. We wandered through the digital factory of attention, where every scroll and swipe is engineered to hijack our focus and fragment our presence into 1,000 data points. We rediscovered the sacred self beneath the noise, the quiet spark of intrinsic values waiting to guide our every step. And finally, we began crafting a personal rebellion, recognizing that true revolt against modern slavery unfolds not in grand gestures but in steadfast, small acts of daily defiance. Each microchoice has become a stitch in a tapestry of liberation, redefining who we are and what our days can hold. Now, standing at this threshold, the question becomes palpable: what will you do with the insights you have unearthed? The sprawling web of soft coercions, scripts you never wrote, cravings you didn't seed, distractions you didn't choose, still hums at the edges of your awareness. In each moment of indecision, in each flick of the thumb toward a glowing rectangle, in each unconscious nod to a habit that no longer serves you, lies the invitation to reclaim authorship of your own life. This is not a distant aspiration but an urgent call to action. If there was ever a moment to break free from the insidious pull of programmed living, it is now. Begin by identifying the single most insidious chain still constraining you. Perhaps it is the unexamined morning ritual. You reach for your phone before you've even sat up, letting notifications script the first moments of your consciousness. Or maybe it is the siren song of midnight scrolling that starves you of restorative rest. It could be the impulse to medicate every flicker of discomfort, whether loneliness, boredom, or anxiety, before granting yourself the courtesy of true reflection. It might be the weight of a must-have item, a craving cultivated by glossy ads and peer pressure, filling your soul with emptiness rather than satisfaction. Or the endless lure of social media's applause, eroding your inner validation in favor of fragile, externally constructed self-worth. Whatever it is, shine your brightest flashlight on that vulnerability. Name it. Feel the edges of its grip. And choose, in this very moment, one tiny act of defiance. Silence the notifications at the bedside. Let your first inhalation of morning air be unmediated by an app. Promise yourself that tonight, you will put the phone face down and follow the rhythm of your breathing, allowing your mind to drift in the uncharted sea of unstructured thought. If it is a purchasing impulse, vow to wait 24 hours before clicking buy, giving space for your authentic values to speak up. If it is a craving for escape, make a note of what you're avoiding, an emotion, a choice, a conversation, and sit with that invitation for 5 uninterrupted minutes. Each tiny deed of rebellion does more than resist the immediate pull. It signals to your nervous system that you are the author, not the audience, of your own story. Beyond the single spark of resistance, consider the scaffolding of support you can build around your newfound agency. Share your intention with a trusted friend or family member. Invite them to join you in a simple ritual of presence, perhaps a weekly check-in where you both describe one moment when you chose deliberate engagement over automatic reaction. Cultivate a small community of fellow seekers who can celebrate each other's minor victories and lend empathy when the weight of old patterns tugs you back. Accountability need not be punitive, rather, it can be the gentle reflection of mirrors that remind you of your better self when you lose sight of your aims. In solidarity, the path of personal rebellion becomes less lonely and more joyful. Let us not forget that every great movement of liberation, on the societal or intimate level, begins with the courage to ask unsettling questions. Who am I beneath the surface noise? Whose scripts am I following unawares? What would it mean to reclaim the space of my own attention, to fill it with purpose rather than passive consumption? What might unfold if I let discomfort be my teacher instead of my enemy? These questions pierce the veil of ordinary existence and invite us into the domain of conscious creation. They are not once-and-done prompts, but companionable guides on a lifelong expedition of self-authorship. And so we arrive at a dialectic that pulses at the heart of genuine freedom, the tension between comfort in conformity and the discomfort inherent in growth. The easier path beckons at every juncture, the warm glow of screens, the reassuring chorus of ventas, the predictable lull of habitual routines. Yet it is on the narrower, uneven ridge of deliberate choice that true aliveness stirs. Growth demands we trade the solace of camouflage for the vulnerability of authenticity. It calls us to stand unprotected before our own desires and fears, to craft responses that spring from our own core rather than from the default settings programmed into our minds by culture, commerce, and convenience. Imagine your life as a blank page at the start of an unwritten novel. Each small act of intentionality, pausing before a click, breathing before a reaction, choosing presence over distraction, crafts a sentence. Over days and weeks, those sentences become paragraphs, then chapters, weaving a narrative that bears your distinctive voice. If you never interrupt the autofilled defaults, your story reads like a template written by someone else. But with each micro-intervention, the ink shifts, inflecting the story with the color of your unique spirit. What kind of protagonist do you wish to be? One who drifts behind the currents of convenience, or one who steers the rudder with conscious hands, charting courses guided by inner light? 80% of the chains that bind us are forged in the small moments we never pause to question. Breaking a single link may feel insignificant, yet it weakens the entire shackle. One person's decision to take silence over a notification does not overthrow the attention economy alone, but it announces a declaration of self-sovereignty. Multiply that act by hundreds, thousands, millions, and you have the stirring of a cultural sea change. Your personal rebellion joins a larger movement of conscious beings waking from the lullaby of soft enslavement and claiming their humanity back, strand by strand. And yet, even as we champion these acts of defiance, the final provocation hangs in the air. If you do not author your own life, someone else will, with chapters scripted by algorithms, advertising jingles, and the hum of automated wants. What will your next move be? Will you let the world continue to piece together your days in convenience colors, or will you seize the pen and write each line with deliberate intent? The choice rests with you, in this very heartbeat. So pause now, take a deep breath, and look inward. What single habit can you flip today to reclaim your freedom? What faint voice within you has been crying out for attention? What small ritual can you institute to protect that spark of sacred self that still gleams beneath the din of modern life? Commit to it. Name it. Share it. And then, when the familiar currents of convenience tug at your sleeve, recall the truth. You are not a passenger on this journey but the driver, the storyteller, the alchemist transforming raw moments into the gold of genuine living. The pages of tomorrow await your authorship. In each sunrise, there is a chance to reaffirm your sovereignty, to choose presence over distraction, depth over speed, authenticity over pretense. The voices around you may whisper that this path is too rocky, too demanding, too out of step with the crowd. But remember that the crowd, for the most part, drifts together through the shallow channels designed to contain them. In the quieter, less traveled stream lies a current of creation, of discovery, of liberty. Your freedom is neither granted nor bought, it is reclaimed, moment by moment, choice by conscious choice. The soft enslavement of modern life loses its power whenever the spark of your own intention shines through. Let every decision, however small, be a testament to your resolve. And as you step forward into each new day, hold this reflection close: the most profound revolution begins in the private theater of your mind. If you do not script your own narrative, others will, stroke by stroke, until your story belongs to them. The pen is in your hand. The question remains, what will you write next?